What happens when your close friend is a horrible D&D player? Let me describe the situation. Nate is a very close friend of mine who is a swell guy but can act like a spoiled child beyond belief, especially at games. He is also a notorious cheater. I should note that I am 28 years old and he is 25. We had made an effort to get into D&D, but for various reasons, we couldn't quite arrange consistent sessions with another close friend as the DM. I soon decided that I would start DMing myself, and soon after studying on how to DM, I started a campaign for Tomb of Annihilation. The players would be 2 colleagues of mine and Nate, along with my other friend who used to DM, Greg. First session for my first time ever DMing went pretty decently, except for the fact that Nate was constantly on his phone and drawing, not making any effort to actually play the game. I asked for constructive criticism after the session ended. Everybody gave me great tips. Nate just said, "It was boring. I quit." Right after the first session. Note here that I had prepared a huge plot hook for him and spent hours to set up his own personal quest. I asked him to give it another shot and to actually try and play the game this time, instead of doing other things. He told me, "I don't really like your 2 colleagues. I only want to play with my friends." So he really does quit the campaign, and we have to postpone it until we find some new players. We find someone eventually and run the campaign smoothly for a month or 2. We go for drinks with Nate, and he tells me he wants to give it another shot. I accept him back and re-prepare new character hooks for him, dedicating a lot of time again. On the day of the session, we would pick up Greg, who was an excellent player, and they would come to my place with Nate's car. They come 2 hours late. I asked why they were delayed so much, to which Nate just replied with, "I was too bored to get out of bed." I am already fuming, but decide to let it slide because the others have already been waiting for 2 hours, and I just wanted to get the game started. We play for around 1.5 hours, and then suddenly Nate gets up and says, "Alright, I'm peacing out. I'll go grab something to eat with my girlfriend." I tell him that the session is 4 hours long, to which he replies with, "Yeah, I'm never gonna sit the whole 4 hours. I'll just get up and leave if I feel like it. Also, I'm not gonna be here every week. Maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks if I'm not bored." We are all dumbfounded by his behavior, and I cancel the rest of the session because I am way too upset to continue playing. The next day I announce to him that I do not want him back at the table, and he is indefinitely banned from any D&D games I'll be DMing. He agrees and says, "Yeah, I was gonna quit again anyway. Those colleagues of yours are huge losers. Can't stand them." Fast forward to a year later. Some of our mutual friends want to get into D&D, and I agree to DM a one-shot for them. Nate says he wants to play too, and I remind him that he is banned from my table. He keeps pressuring me to let him back, and our other friends say they want to play with him too, so I eventually agree. The one-shot is going decently, except the fact that Nate is constantly telling everyone what to do and keeps talking over me. He is being really disrespectful, and along with another friend of mine, will not stop talking and laughing over things not related to the game. Me, along with the other players that actually wanted to play, can't quite manage to do so over the noise. I finally give up trying and cancel the one-shot, announcing that I will not be playing with either of them ever again. Big drama ensues where both of them are acting surprised with me, saying I do not want to play with them, while the other players are defending me, saying they really wanted to play and couldn't do so over the noise. We managed to finish the one-shot another day. I decided to take another step back for the sake of the other players who really wanted to play. I did it under the rule that if Nate and the other guy ever annoy me or anyone else again, I instantly end the session. It went fine. Now Nate, Greg, and 2 other friends are really digging D&D, and I decide to DM Curse of Strahd for them. Now I know what you're thinking. How could you start another campaign with Nate after all that he's done? Well, his behavior on the last one-shot gave me false hope, and we were all close friends, so I thought that this will be the thing that will make him behave. It sort of did, actually. I've laid some concrete rules on Session 0 where I make sure to point out that if I ever have to cancel a session because someone is being a child, targeted towards Nate of course, I will not be accepting him back to the table. I didn't really fall through in the long run, but nothing extremely unpleasant happened, except one time where he got really drunk and we had to cancel the session because he was unable to communicate. Session 1 ends and there is already tons of drama. Nate has a huge main hero problem and doesn't like not being the center of attention at all times, and hates when the NPCs don't automatically worship him. I explained to him that Curse of Strahd is a dark, grim horror campaign that is supposed to make the players feel helpless. The drama settles, but not before we have a couple of hours long conversations as a group. He then states, "If my character ever dies, I'm quitting the campaign and not rolling a new one." Now at this point, it becomes apparent to me that Nate has no understanding about the nature of D&D. He treats it like an MMORPG, and I really struggle to remember of a single time he roleplayed well. If he ever interacted with an NPC, it was only to ask for magic items and money. I explained to him dozens of times that the world doesn't revolve around him, and he can't ask strangers for magic items. He can't understand it at all. He once picked up a villager, pinned him to the wall at the town square, and put a knife on his throat, and then lashed out at me that I was being unfair when I told him that the guards tossed him out of the city. Also, he played a cleric. Literally every time I described someone wearing armor, he would interrupt me and say, "Is it plate armor?" Nate was a horrible metagamer. He would always give orders and tell others how to play in combat, even though I punished him constantly with him losing his turn. He would also never speak in character, along with the fact that if they ever did find a magic item, he felt like he was the only one worthy of holding it. A legendary sword dropped and he wanted to be the one to hold it, even though he wasn't even proficient with it, because he believed he was the chosen one. Now the players have all expressed their dislike about Nate, but I try to keep things as calm and steady as possible because I really want to finish the campaign. He was a horrible player, but the other 3 were excellent at roleplaying and very fun to DM for. 2 incidents stood out when we were near the end of the campaign. They finally find a shining +2 plate armor, but it was at the lair of the big bad evil guy. They had other things to do, and as they all agreed, it was an in and out operation to get their quest done. But Nate wanted to sit 2 hours to wear his new armor. That's how long it takes for a warforged to unequip and re-equip armor. They had already caused a huge tremor and are 100% sure that they have alerted each and every living and undead creature in the vicinity of the lair. At this point, they all want to run, but couldn't do so because Nate was throwing a hissy fit. The artificer, Greg, casts Minimize on the armor and stuffs it in his bag of holding. If I hadn't banned PvP, then for sure it would have happened there. It took half an hour to get him to stop yelling about the plate armor. The other one was that before the last session and the final showdown, he wanted to prepare dozens of holy water bottles so he can throw them at the big bad evil guy. I explained to him that it would take ages for very little gain, and they would enter the final battle with missing spell slots. He won't listen. He wants to sit and do nothing for 2 days in-game time, preparing holy water along with their NPC follower, who was a cleric too. I explained to him that their follower doesn't agree and says that it would be suicide to stay stationary for 2 days for absolutely no reason, and even more deadly if they go to the final combat with no spell slots. Huge hissy fit again, ending the conversation with, "I don't care what you say, I'll do it anyway. I'll convince the others." He didn't. The campaign ends and they are victorious. I really enjoyed it, and it would have left a good taste, if only I didn't find out later that Nate had arranged a hidden meeting with the others, telling them, "Make sure the DM doesn't find out." In that meeting, he wanted to turn the group against me and convince them about the holy water scheme. They told me it took them 2 hours to get him to stop screaming. They also revealed to me that in the final 2 sessions, when we switched to Roll20 and Discord, Nate was spam sending them messages on Facebook ordering them on what actions to do. But this last one is what makes me the most furious. Greg decided to DM Waterdeep sometime after Curse of Strahd ended, with the same players except for the Barbarian, who told me, "I really like D&D, but I wouldn't play with Nate again if my life depended on it." We replaced him, and I am a player too this time. It lasted 2 sessions before we decided to finally boot Nate and start another campaign, after he acted like a big baby for the last time. He was upset because we entered a museum with clockwork inventions, and he told the owner of the museum, "Give me some of these inventions so I can study them and make weapons." The owner refused, but he wouldn't stop bugging him, eventually lashing out to the DM for not letting him get epic recipes. I explained to him that if he was an apprentice historian in real life, if he went to the Museum of Acropolis and asked to touch and study the ancient monuments there, would they let him? He replied with, "Forget you all. You aren't letting me play the game." Now again, if you have reached the end of this and have your pitchfork at the ready, already typing, "You should have booted him out earlier. It is all your fault," please cut me some slack. Remember that A, he was a really close friend in a group of close friends, and B, I'm not some pro DM who has the ability to handle every situation as smoothly as possible. I hope you never run into a situation like this in your tabletop RPG careers. Also, dozens of incidents were left out, because if I ever attempted to write them all, I'd reach the character limit many times over. Some clarifications. If I ever did kick Nate from Curse of Strahd, we'd have to cancel the campaign due to only having 3 players. Plus, everyone would get bummed out by the drama that would be sure to follow. Don't say, no D&D is better than bad D&D, because it wasn't bad in the slightest, as everyone was having tons of fun. It was just that Nate made parts of it worse. Plus, nobody actually wanted him gone. We were all close friends since we were teens. Lastly, Nate really is a good guy. In this story, I'm pointing out why he is a horrible player, but in reality, he is very pleasant to be around, most times. These past few years, he has been through some extremely rough situations, like a death in the family. So what type of friends would we be if we just gave him the boot straight up, instead of understanding and enduring his bad behavior for as long as possible? Yeah, a lot of people like to think how no player at the table can be bad and that you can always walk away. But when that person is part of your close social group, or even part of your family, excluding them can lead to outside drama. Sometimes we focus too much on trying to make every game perfect, but maybe sometimes that guy can be a necessary evil if everyone at the table is able to tolerate them. I just always find it weird when you have someone who is so nice in any other situation, but when it comes to having fun in games, then they become a monster. Anywho, what do you all think about this situation?